let's cut through the noise. There are only 5 types of Montessori materials that you actually need in your home. You're probably tired of hearing that you need a full set of classroom materials in order to make Montessori even work. In fact, you probably are feeling some pressure to do Montessori right. And this is coming from all around us. It's historical. It's not a you problem, it's a Montessori problem. So we're going to tell you today that the key to making Montessori work at home is actually not having all of the materials or a list of full materials that you need to have in order to make it work. It's learning how to use the materials and making sure that you have the right kinds of materials. Yes, now many parents actually overcomplicate Montessori. They think that if they just have that magical list, and I know we have one called the Montessori, what is it called? The Montessori
Essentials. Yes. The 20 Essentials.
It used to be 21 essentials, then we narrowed it back to 20, just to make it all nice and even. Now it's not quite as catchy, but it is what it is. We have a list of essential Montessori materials. It's a great starting place for you. But believe me, 20 is like not that many compared to like all of the supplies you could possibly have in order to do Montessori.
We picked 2 per subject area. If you didn't get your list already, it's a freebie. You can get it on our website at childoftheredwoods.com/essentials. And it's a PDF you can download. It gives you 2 essential materials for each. We prioritize DIY or free or common materials. There are a few things that you might want to invest in. We often are asked. But the truth of the matter is there aren't very many. And in this video, we wanted to talk kind of more globally. We wanted to say, if you're thinking about 5 areas of Montessori practice, what kinds of things would you need? Because a lot of parents assume that you have to like fill a house as though it were a classroom in order to teach all of those things. And that is just not the case, right? More materials does not equal better Montessori experience.
That's right. That's right. I know. I think parents really do try to equivalate those 2 things. And it's actually not just, I know I said it was like a Montessori problem, but it's not just a Montessori problem.
No,
it's a
not.
Cultural problem that we're having with overconsumption. And it's, you can speak to this historically, but this is the era we're living in. You know, we're living in an era of overconsumption, of unsustainable living. And, you know, the Montessori method, the way Maria Montessori designed it, invented it, cultivated it, was actually before the 1950s, when it feels like, I don't know, we just started plastic, you know, plastic became just part of everyday culture, and just this mass production of instantly available, almost magically produced and proliferation of all of this stuff that we have around us, right?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about, you said a minute ago, you don't have to buy everything just to do it right. You feel the pressure to do it right. And it made me think, speaking of consumers, it made me think of the old Nike ad. And for those of you who are graybeards like me, you'll remember in the 80s when that campaign launched with, I think, Michael Jordan and...
Just do it.
Yeah, the Just Do It campaign. That's right, Spike Lee. And it was great, right? I think they continue. I think it's so powerful that it continues on even today, like many, many, many years later. And it was a brilliant concept, right? Because what are they telling you if the Just Do It campaign? Like, you don't have to be Michael Jordan or LeBron James or whoever. Like, you don't have to be the very, very, very best, most elite athlete. You should just go out and enjoy it. And of course, our shoes will help you do it. So it's very, very clever, right?
It is, because it makes you feel like you don't need anything else but you. But then they're like, but actually you need...
It just so happens that everybody who's doing it also has these shoes. I think it's actually a really great example, because we don't, like, I think sometimes we have in our mind, like, buy, you know, like the pressure to consume. But it actually isn't so blatant, right? It's not like some very simplistic propaganda like you would see in like 1984, like peace is war, right? Or war is peace, like painted on the wall, like in that book.
No, it's very subversive.
It's very, very subtle. Like, what is the Nike ad doing? It's convincing you that all you have to do is try, which is a good sentiment and something you would want.
That's why it's brilliant.
And also buy our shoes and gear because that is our ethos. So we're essentially selling you the ethos. Apple does this brilliantly too, or used to. Like, I don't know that they're quite as good at it, but they were really, the Apple as a company was brilliant at, they'd sell you an ethos. Now, I think that what we're seeing in Montessori is kind of the same thing, because we see in social media, we see kind of in everyday life, maybe in schools and so forth, we're buying into the ethos, but then we associate the ethos with the material. Just like you buy into the ethos of the Just Do It campaign, and then you buy the shoes because you associate the two. It's subtle.
Right.
And we got to break that, right? Like, you don't have to have Nikes to just go out and have fun, right? We all know that. Well, it's exactly the same thing if you are into Montessori. You don't need stuff. Like, you need some things because, like, you do need a pair of shoes in order to run or your feet are going to hurt. Totally true. You want a movable alphabet. You want some stuff. But the stuff isn't the key, and it's not the embodiment of the ethos. The embodiment of the ethos is in your child and in you when you present the lessons and understand, and in Maria's work itself, and more broadly, just like in the cosmos. Like, it's tapping into something very eternal and true. That can't be commoditized. And that's really what we're saying, is like, you don't assume that the ethos and the materials are linked.
Right. I feel, I promise we're going to tell you those 5 types that you need, but I feel this real tension myself when thinking about the worldly way of overconsumption and advertising, and the way Montessori materials are being marketed to parents, and the cost of them. You know, the way Maria Montessori, and she was an entrepreneur. She wanted to make these materials. She was very excited about working with companies, you know, creating companies from the very beginning to make these materials that would be used in her classrooms. But these were all like handmade, like in fact meticulously.
Yeah, she was very exacting.
Designed hardwood, mostly materials that in her time would have been a lot more sustainable and weren't easily reproducible either. And so, you know, there's that bit of marketing that kind of comes from the original method that I feel that tension with, because obviously, like, if you are prioritizing making Montessori materials from, you know, with like, that are handmade, that use hardwood, that's sustainable, that has someone lovingly painting every single cube by hand, you know, the paint tower, then obviously it's not going to be world dominated, right? Because it's not cheap enough, and it's not, I mean, it's like hyper local and specific. And what we have now is we have these big Montessori materials companies that are just pumping out these materials. And, you know, I like to think the best of them, that like the best of these companies is thinking with sustainability in mind, and also, you know, fair wages. And but the truth is, we know that's not the case. We know it's not. They're just too, and it's great that they're accessible to more people. But at the same time, we want to convey to you that these materials are not magical by their very nature. There are lots of alternatives that you can use, and you don't need all of them. You know, so you can be very intentional. You know, very intentional about which Montessori materials you do choose to bring into your home. You can't do anything about the fact that most of the children's playthings and educational materials are made unsustainably. There are companies that are working that still do it by hand. I can name a few of them for you. If you want to DM me later on Instagram, happy to tell you some of them. But like, they're not functioning at scale.
No, that's
You
not.
know, I mean, there are always going to be lovely little handmade things that are sold for top dollar because that's what it actually costs to make them. But that's not actually the solution, you know,
No, I mean, that's
that we want you to come to.
And I want to underline that. I want to just real quick, I
Yeah.
want to say, because if the ecology piece is important to you, great. If the consumer piece is important to you, great. But actually, that's not the reason not to buy this stuff. Like,
Right.
those are great reasons if they're important to you and they're important to us. But
Right.
you may be like, you know, you have a different philosophy. That's fine. What we're saying as educators is that they are tools, and tools have only as much value as the craftsperson using the tool. And you can have a garage full of tools.
Not the craftsperson making the tool, the craftsperson
right.
who is crafting the educational experience by using them.
That's right. So we've talked about it. You could be a shade tree mechanic if there were any of those left, and have a garage full of tools like my father used to have. And he was a terrible carpenter and a terrible mechanic. But he loved to collect tools. It didn't make him better. It's exactly the same thing when it comes to Montessori, or anything in life. Like, at the end of the day, they're just materials. There's no magical properties in them.
Right.
And that's the reason that you don't want, because it creates this expectation for yourself that you're going to learn them, then you feel guilty, then you've spent too much money, then you want to try something else, or you give up, or you try and double down, I'll just get something else.
Or you buy into the idea that just because you have a beautiful shelf set up with all these gorgeous wooden things that you're actually doing Montessori. You know, and the truth is it takes a lot more to Montessori than just to have the materials on the
That's
shelf.
right.
All right, so
Pia makes a good note here, and then I know we'll switch. But
good.
she says, so important to remind us that just because it's Montessori, it's not sustainable. The truly sustainable ones wouldn't be affordable to homeschoolers. That's exactly right.
yeah.
You know,
I mean, if you were to get every single thing made in a sustainable way, right?
Yeah,
We
that's
have
right.
invested in certain handmade wooden things that are made with love and care and attention and paid a lot of money for them. But they're very, very few.
Yeah, and we're anti-gatekeeper, hardcore anti-gatekeepers here. We're glad that there is accessibility of materials now, but
Yes.
there is a consequence to it. And beyond that, we kind of come from an older school concept, of a mindset of like, it wasn't always cheap to buy these materials, but you could still homeschool Montessori because we did. And because the materials themselves aren't magic. You can replace them with other things if you know what you're after.
Yep.
You can spend your money, whatever budget you might have, on specific things and then use the heck out of it because it's interdisciplinary. And that still makes it affordable. So no matter what
Yes.
happens to the accessibility of...
And a lot of people buy secondhand, and that's great.
That's
you know,
right.
Or buy in a group, like you and your friends get together and buy some and then share them.
Totally. Because you're only going to use
Amazing.
most of these materials, you're going to have a pretty short shelf life for your child.
Right.
All right. So that's an awesome preamble. A lot of philosophy and theory there, I guess, in the sense of like, you don't need the materials. Feel good about that. If you have a bunch of stuff, that's fine. But if you don't, that's also cool. In fact,
Right.
it's probably nice that you didn't overbuy stuff. We are fans of not over-consuming because of the ecology and things like that.
That's right.
So, okay, OP also has, I'm always amazed at how many times you guys say, oh, we never had that material in our homeschool.
It's true.
Yeah, we really didn't. We actually bought most of the stuff that
we
we
bought
use
it.
now
We
for
bought
use for
it just
teaching.
a few years ago, just so that I would have a representation of most of the things on the shelf.
Yeah, because we
and it
wanted
was
to
a
pour our-
business investment,
Yeah.
you know. But when our children were little, it really was the materials that I had were materials that were passed on to me.
Yep.
And then when our youngest was about 4, we invested in a pink tower. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which my mother bought from a Montessori conference from a vendor.
But you made most of the stuff, or we just went to thrift stores or places like that and bought replacements. And everybody can do that. You just have to know the theory. You just have to understand. Once you understand the principles, then you can
you'll just be
it
finding
yourself.
the Montessori lessons everywhere. That's what we
Totally.
want. And it is also why we give you so many materials lists in here so that you can pick and choose from them. It's not that you have to do every single lesson. We have checklists. If you're a checklist type of person, I am a checklist type of person. We've got that, and you can go through and see all of the classic Montessori lessons that are in the entire curriculum and be fully aware of every single material that there ever has been developed in the traditional Montessori approach. But that said, if you just take a look at some of these, and this is for members as well, if you take a look at some of these foundational lessons that we have leveled for you, levels 1 through 6 now, from primary through lower elementary, you actually can pick and choose from the different subject areas that we've given you. And so really there are 5 types of Montessori materials that we want everyone to have, all right? And it's not going to be specific, like you have to have a pink tower or you have to have, these things. That there are Montessori materials that I love and I want everyone to have, like conceptually, like a movable alphabet. It doesn't have to be a wooden movable alphabet all sorted in a little wooden
Here's our old tile version.
box.
We've been
But
using colored on the
But
bottom.
I want everyone to have that, right? I want everyone to have something that they can use to teach base 10 with in math, and that's our golden beads. And why? Because they're so wonderful and they're just going to have long-lasting effect. But like outside of those two, really, I was just going to say like those are the
Movable
two.
alphabet, golden beads.
Those are the 2 winners, right? But outside of that, you're really looking to make sure that your child has a well-rounded education and things to engage with that are going to inspire them and encourage them to play in a way that's going to grow their brain. And so here are those 5 categories. Number 1 is some practical life tools. Now these don't have to be specific tools. When I think of practical life tools, I'm thinking of kitchen items immediately.
Yeah.
But we can also include like the actual tools that you were talking about. I guess
Yeah,
your
a
dad.
little tool set.
I guess your dad had a whole lot of practical life.
He did have a
Had
lot of practical
fond
life.
love of practical life, and not a whole lot of skill, but a super love of it, and that's okay. We can.
Yeah, he did. He passed neither the skill nor the desire to me. So
That's true. That's true. So think about like a child-sized hammer. I know that's scary to a lot lot of parents, but it's a really great tool.
and we're talking about I think we start teaching that in like level
like
2.
4-year-olds, yeah, or 4-year-olds are right on for a little small
And
hammer.
not just like a plastic hammer, but a real little child-sized hammer. You
Yeah.
buy them. Sometimes they come with tools inside, because they're real small.
So you're also thinking about things to do in the kitchen. So the last time we went to IKEA and we saw all those little like egg slicers, strawberry slicers.
Well, when we went to that Goodwill a couple weeks ago in the peninsula, remember? And they had just tons of
they did.
stuff.
They did.
For like nothing.
Yes.
For next to nothing.
Practical life tools. So little tools that you would use to go about your everyday life with. We're thinking tongs and tweezers.
Sponges.
And sponges.
Sponges that you're going to cut. You're going to buy a sponge and then you're going to cut it into smaller squares. I remember.
1/3.
Yeah, and then your little guys are going to use those little sponges. They're perfect.
Wait,
for the
you're talking about something different.
Oh. I was talking about scrubbing sponges for like using in the bathroom or the kitchen for practical life.
Well then 1/3.
Yeah.
1/3. But there are other sponge activities you
There
can
are.
do.
Well, this is the one I was thinking.
Okay.
But
We're on the
yeah,
same
go
page
get some
then.
Scotch-Brite or
So
whatever.
practical life is a foundational topic. A lot of people do discover Montessori practical life first, and that's great. We love it when you discover Montessori through practical life because talk about like a wealth of materials just in your own home, tools that you don't have to have every single one of, but you probably have a ton of if you just go look in your kitchen right now and just open up that utensil drawer. You're going to find a ton of practical life. These materials are great. They help your child develop concentration, independence. They help your child learn how to focus on a task from beginning to end. And there's just no end. Also, they're cute. like finding child-sized practical life materials. Most of us as parents really gravitate to this just because they're so adorable, and it's great practice for you. You're learning how to set up the Montessori tray or
Totally.
yeah. So it's
I just
really,
grabbed the card here. I want to give us an example.
Okay.
So this is this is the level 1 card, all dressed up. So these are we call this topic all dressed up. It's in practical life. There are 6 lessons that we categorize under level 1. So this would probably be a 2-year-old. So those lessons are getting dressed, clothes hanging, hook and loop, buttoning,
hook and loop is Velcro.
snapping, and zipping.
Yeah.
Right? So those are the lessons. None of those require you to buy anything special. Now, there are things you can buy. You can buy a frame. What's it called? A dressing frame. And it'll have snaps and stuff. You know what else has snaps? Your pants. You know what else has a zipper? Your coat.
Right.
Those are perfectly fine to use as well. You can go buy like a little child size coat rack and have them put their coats on it. We had one. We had one when we lived in Washington, D.C. because they had winter coats and stuff. But you don't have to have that. You could also just put a hook on the wall and teach them to hang the coat that way, because that's really what you're getting at. So all of these things have stuff you could buy. You don't need to buy any of it. It's all, that's why it's called practical life. It's supposed to be things that are in your everyday life already. And we could do the same for any of these cards here. There's, I don't remember how many lessons in the whole of the levels 1 to 3, but there's almost nothing that you would really need to buy. What you really just need to know is what are the lessons and how do I give those lessons? So like here's a level 2, so that would be like level ages 3, 2, 3, 4. So walking on a curved line, walking on a zigzag line.
You just need your body.
You need your body, maybe some tape to mark out a path.
Maybe.
So
maybe
carrying
you're
a heavy
outside.
object, something like carrying something heavy in the house. You don't need to buy anything.
No.
And these are core lessons.
In the Montessori classroom with the carrying a heavy thing, we used to just fill up an empty milk jug with water. And I used some super glue to kind of seal it up. And then that was the heavy thing that our kids were carrying for a while. Or a stack of books is also a really great heavy thing to be carrying. I remember at one point, I'm trying to remember what classroom I was in where we were using this or I saw it. But someone had actually taken one of those gigantic old phone books, from ye
olden days.
And they were like, or maybe their mother sewed, or so, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that maybe their mother sewed, and so they used upholstery fabric to cover the phone book in cloth, and it was a toddler classroom. I don't even know that it was a Montessori toddler classroom, but I do remember it was a toddler classroom, and the kids would like pick up this heavy upholstered
no way to get
phone
hurt,
book.
no way to hurt
to
the
carry
object,
a heavy
but
object.
it's heavy. It's got a good heft to it. That's a great one. You can find a phone book.
Now, here's the important thing to remember again, is that when you're choosing your practical life tools, you don't have to have one of every single thing. You just need to have this type of thing,
That's
so
right.
you're looking for outside tools, inside tools, anything that you use in a daily life.
And to remember that even though we've been talking about practical life, this is also related to other, it's interdisciplinary. So this is all these skills and these tools that we're talking about are also things that you're going to use in things like art, for fine motor skills and creativity, mathematics. So measuring cups would be something that you might, and spoons, and those kinds of tools in the kitchen are a practical life. They are also things that you would use for mathematics, because if you have to convert or you're counting out spoons full of something into a cup, that's a mathematics activity. And plus, of course, sensorial and other things as well. So the concepts that you might focus on here, they really apply not just to practical life, even though we gave some good practical life examples.
Okay, the second one is sensorial. So make sure you have some practical life materials, tools. Also make sure that you have some sensorial materials. Now I know a lot of people get very anxious when we mention the word sensorial, because then they're like, wait a minute, these are all those classic Montessori materials that maybe I don't know how to use.
Yeah.
Like the geometry cabinet. What does one do with that?
Which
right?
is a perfect example because that is exactly what Pia just asked in the
Is
chat.
it?
I'm really stuck on how to make the geometric cabinet. Not sure how to DIY it. It's really
hilarious.
expensive on DIY
Yes.
constructive triangles. I wonder what you guys think about the cabinet.
Yep.
Yeah, well, the cabinet is cool.
It is. It's great. But remember that the purpose, Pia, is shapes. Your child is exploring shapes. There are probably many things that you could use in your home that have shapes already that you could, cookie cutters. Probably in the kitchen is a great place. Or you can just make them out of paper. You know, what we would do in lower elementary, and I know that your child is kind of hanging in between primary and lower elementary, is with that geometric cabinet, it's really more about the exploration of the shapes than it is about the cabinet. You know, so it is going to be fine. What we would do in lower L anyway is have our child like make a set of these shapes out of construction paper and glue them onto a background. And so you're thinking, okay, so I'm going to trace out triangles of various types, and then I'll give that to my child, and my child will just glue them onto some paper, and we'll learn the name of them, and maybe we'll use our finger to kind of trace around them.
If you want it to be thicker, you could use cardstock or
you can.
felt or something.
So remember, at the lower elementary age, it's not so much about the puzzling piece. That's going to be more for the little ones. Puzzles are puzzles are great at any age. Okay, but your child is moving out of that sensorial phase into the geometry phase.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
So anyway, the point is, you don't have to have all of these sensorial materials. You might feel like you need to because you look online and you see all these shelves with sensorial materials on them. Pink tower, knob cylinders, color tablets. But in fact, if you look at the development of the child, your child is a sensory seeker and they're already exploring their world. And so what do you need to focus on? The five senses. Do you have things for them to taste? Do you have things for them to, textures for them to touch? Do you have things for them to listen to, specifically to really lean in and listen to, right? So we could go on, like smelling.
Yep.
What else is
Taste, smell, touch,
hearing,
sight.
Sight. Okay, yes. And that's where those color tablets come in. Like, do you have things for your child to explore in terms of like the visual sense, distinguishing between colors or between shapes or between sizes? And so if you think of it like this, like, do I have things at home that help my child refine all five of their senses? Then you can let go of this expectation to have every single Montessori sensorial material.
Yeah, so we'll do the same thing. I'm just grabbing our stack of cards. These are for sensorial. Again, it's not just sensorial stuff. We're talking about sensorial materials that support other disciplines. But here's an example. So this on this one, we call this one all hands on deck. It's about sense of touch. So rough and smooth, soft and scratchy, warm and cool, mystery bag, and sorting by feel. So there are things that you would want to have for this, like some sandpaper, a little soft something, a bag or a box or a bag nicely that they could stick their hands into. But you probably already have most of that stuff. Now again, you can go buy all of those things from a store, but that are specifically called or named or designed for this, and there are official versions. But what you're really trying to do, because this is a level 1, is give your child a tactile experience with things that are rough and things that are smooth. So something rough, like maybe a fine grit sandpaper, like on a sandpaper letter, versus something smooth like the back of the sandpaper letter. That would also do it. We had talked earlier about the geometric cabinet, and so here's from level 2, getting into shapes. So this one, the lessons are circles, rectangles, and triangles. So this is a basic introduction to shapes. And then the same plus their outlines, the names of the solids, their properties, and then constructive triangle box 3 and 4. And what's in those boxes would be explained in the guide. So this will just tell you that to refer to it. But what's going to be in those boxes will be just some very basic triangle shapes. And you don't have, again, you could go buy the geometric cabinet, or you could go buy this set, or you could just read what it is. Like, we want an isosceles triangle and whatever, and print them out from home, and you have it covered.
Yeah, I think it's always a really good exercise. The game that we played when we had our children, when our children were young enough to be engaging in the primary and lower elementary curriculum, was, okay, so here are all the lessons. And again, like, if you choose the Child of the Redwoods curriculum, you get all the lessons.
Sure.
But the question to ask yourself that's like a really easy answer is, that you get an easy answer to, is like, what is this lesson teaching?
That's
and
right.
so it's pretty easy to figure that out.
Yeah.
If you open it up, you'll see a lesson and you'll be like, okay, so here's what I do. Now, what is it teaching? It's teaching shapes. All right. And
Yeah.
so do you have to have all of the constructive triangle boxes in order to teach about how triangles fit together? No. You can cut out some triangles out of construction paper and then let your child, piece them together. Or you can use other sensorial resources that may not be Montessori material specific. Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of pattern blocks.
Oh,
Has a
yeah.
lot of piecing the shapes together to make other shapes. And that's really what we're teaching with the constructive triangles.
Yeah, for those, I know we have a lot of folks who are in our community who watch our YouTube show, and if you've ever wondered like why we grouped certain lessons together, it's because they all are around a similar concept. So on the card, however many lessons, so this card only has 3 lessons. And this is what do you hear? So it's a sound, it's under sensorial, and the lessons, it's a level 3, so meaning it's for like ages 4 to 5 usually. Sound cylinders gradation, bells gradation, and bells combo. So all of these things are teaching a similar concept. They're all different ways to kind of get to the same idea, which is distinguishing subtleties in sound. Can you do that by buying a set of bells from a Montessori company? Or you sure can, but you don't have to, because there are lots of ways that you can bring a child's awareness to the gradation in sound. A keyboard,
Your voice.
your voice. There's lots of ways to do it that don't require you to go out and buy, because to your point earlier, you understand the concept. What the concept is, I want to isolate I want for my child to focus on gradations and sound, because it's something that's around in the world, and by focusing on gradations and sound, it's actually going to help them improve in other academic areas going forward, including like music appreciation and listening and so forth.
Yeah. All right, the next one is language and literacy tools. So for this one, it's pretty simple. We already mentioned the movable alphabet as being a way, but there's no one is saying that you have to have a particular kind of movable alphabet. You just need to have movable letters. And in our curriculum, we often will give paper versions of the movable alphabet just built into our constellation studies. Or you can DIY them like we did. I actually made these for a classroom, and they doubled as being a great resource in our homeschool.
They just came in a kit, right? I think we just found this set of tiles in a game or something.
No, I got these from a teacher supply store.
Oh, I remember that
I think it
place.
was Lakeshore.
Lakeshore, yeah, that's right.
And they came in a
Up
big
Dallas.
tub, and I bought several tubs because I wanted to have enough for a large classroom.
Yeah, and then you cleverly colored the bottom red or blue, because that's what we use in Montessori.
That's right.
So they just came as white tiles. They weren't intended for Montessori classroom specifically, but they were super easy to turn into a Montessori material, and they have lasted forever because they're made of never fade plastic.
That's true. So let's talk about a few other materials that we're talking about. The sandpaper letters, the metal insets is also a literacy tool. It teaches is shapes, but you're teaching your child pencil control. But through these, this concept of language materials, it also includes like books that you might read your child. And you can get most of these books probably, hopefully from a library resource near you. I know not everyone has access to a public library, just blocks from them. I wish you all did. But if you do not overlook this as a resource. It is an invaluable resource for you teaching language and literacy to your child.
That's
right?
exactly right.
The next one is math and geometry.
Yep.
We kind of, sensorial and geometry kind of are linked, as we talked about with Pia, but math and geometry also are linked. Why? Because we're taking that interdisciplinary approach to learning.
Yep.
So in math, you need some math materials. You don't need all of the lessons, obviously, but you want to have some concrete materials that your child can play with.
Yeah, so I picked a card here. This is from our level 3 multiplication card. This is the first card that I've picked, again at random, that I think this is actually a card where you'd want to have some stuff, because dynamic multiplication with the golden beads.
Okay.
You'd want the golden beads.
Yes.
Dynamic multiplication word problems with the golden beads. Dynamic multiplication with the stamp game. A set of stamps. And with the bead frame.
Yep.
So and you do it with a lot of lessons.
Of these, the bead frame is probably the hardest to DIY.
And maybe the least.
And probably the least important. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if you were prioritizing.
yeah.
Because again, like I said a minute ago, these are all around a concept, right? What you're teaching here is multiplication at a kind of at the highest level in primary. It's a level 3. And it's great to have the bead frame. It's great to have all this stuff. But what you're really trying to do is present sensorial materials that allow your child to visualize physically the concept of multiplication.
Right.
And that's what this tool is about. So golden beads are awesome at doing
Yeah.
that.
Now, I think this is beautifully illustrated by when I had my first kindergarten classroom. I was teaching basically Montessori primary in public schools, sort of in secret, sort of out in the public. And we didn't have any Montessori materials, and obviously I couldn't afford to buy them. And not only were they like twice the price that they are today, because they were less mass produced,
Yeah.
I did not have that kind of funds as a public school teacher, and the salary that we public school teachers made back then and now, unfortunately. So no, I couldn't afford to buy an entire classroom's worth of materials,
No.
but and we really weren't given a whole lot of stuff. But there were some materials that other teachers had bought that they had kind of left in cabinets that we were able to uncover in that classroom. And mostly they were made of plastic. They were things like little math cubes that linked together. We had those sorts of things for math. But you can make a ton of math works that are aligned with the Montessori method and these lessons out of just basic manipulatives. We also had a tub of, I think this actually was given to us, as part of our, here's some stuff for kindergarten. It was like very paltry.
Yeah.
But I do remember having a tub of plastic colored bears.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember those?
They do.
They're a very common math material.
Were they different colors? Like you had...
There were 4 colors: red,
Yeah.
green, blue, and yellow.
something.
But like, how perfect is that? Because the Montessori colors are red, blue, and green, blue, and red.
Yeah.
Say it from the units to the hundreds. And so like, what a very unsuspecting match, that could be. So don't think that you need to have the exact materials. You can teach these concepts with just regular old math manipulatives.
That's
Go to your local Target or your teacher's store or whatever, or your Goodwill. Most of us can find secondhand children's toys. Now, these children's toys can then be opened up, and like certain materials can be taken out, and then you can like recreate a different lesson with it. I remember I did a whole lot of that too.
For
if I
sure.
found like some junky games at a Goodwill or at a garage sale, I would buy them, not because they were Montessori, but then I would like save all the little pieces because...
Yeah, like imagine you find a bunch of Scrabble boards that are like mismatched sets that people are giving away or cost nothing. Like,
Yes.
you collect those tiles, you eventually have enough to have a set.
It's probably going to be in uppercase movable alphabet, but Like, I mean,
It's something.
It's still an experience, and you didn't have to spend a lot of money on it. And it's fun to be creative and inventive.
Yeah, you brought new life to
Yeah.
the forgotten toys.
All right, the last category of Montessori tools that you need, and then we'll kind of just very briefly go through all 5, is the cultural studies. And
That's right.
this is where we talk about life science and stuff.
Physical science, life science, and humankind specifically. And more, it's kind
But
of
also
broadly...
the arts, right?
arts, yes. For sure. So this is kind of broadly called cultural studies traditionally in Montessori. In our system, we actually focus in on each of these separately. But the concept is that these are the study of science, whether it's sort of political geography, physical geography, human culture, the development of animals on the earth, life science in general, whatever it is, right? This is kind of the big, meaty picture of the world sort of way.
Yeah.
So what kinds of things would you want to have for this? Probably some puzzles?
Well, I would say actually like access to actual nature is probably your biggest, right? Going out into the world and you're
Yeah, this is,
you're
as a homeschooler,
actually-
this is actually where you really
You're looking
can.
at the ladybugs. You're
Yeah.
not just researching them. You don't have to have a ladybug puzzle in order to
Nope.
learn all the parts. You just have to go out into your natural environment and actually find a beetle, you know, and then you can point out the abdomen and the thorax.
So this
you know,
is
to
where
them.
classification cards, parts cards, things like that really come to shine.
Yes.
And those are things that you can make, or, you know, if you're like in our community, you get them, you have a whole bunch of them at your disposal.
Yeah.
So we have Ladybug as our theme for this month.
Can put my
And
finger
we
on
have
some of
our
those parts
Parts cards,
cards.
parts of a ladybug. Same goes for like maps, flags, pin maps, and things like that. You know, just the kinds of things that you'd be looking for. And some of that you can make, or if, like I said, if you're part of like if a program like ours, you'll get that kind of material to help bring these cultural studies to life.
That's right.
And you want to pair these, no matter what kind of program you're doing, with, as you said, lots of outdoor time. And that's a beautiful part about being a homeschooling family, is that you can really go to places. You have, a lot of times we have more flexibility. And you can go out and really bring things to life. And books. Lots and lots and lots of books.
Okay, so we mentioned 5 types of Montessori materials that every child needs. And it's not what you think. It's practical life materials. Do you have some? Yes or no? Yes? You're good. It's sensorial. Are you providing things for your child to engage with all 5 of their senses?
That's right.
Yes? You're good. Language and literature. Do you have lots of books around your child to read to them or
have
for them to read?
Paper and pencils
Yep.
to write with.
Yes. Do you have some kind of movable alphabet? Doesn't have to be the movable alphabet that is, you know, the idealized way. Do you have one?
Some
All
way
right?
for them to
Yes.
spell with tiles.
Exactly. Math. Do you have some math manipulatives, whether they are plastic bears or whether they are golden beads? Like, do you have some? And I would say a variety of them. Then you're good. You can teach most of the lessons with those. And finally, the cultural subjects. Obviously, that is, you know, one of our ongoing specialties here at Child of the Redwoods. We do as much of this work for you so that you don't have to overthink what you're doing at home yourself. But going out in the world, you probably have everything that you need at your disposal. And what you are really needing to incorporate is like a plan, you know, for that implementation.
Yeah,
all right. So
that's right.
friends, less really is more. A thoughtful system like this where you're categorizing rather than counting the number of materials is the Montessori path.
That's right. We had another good comment from Pia. She says, my Nautilus cylinders are so underused. I wonder if it was a mistake to buy. For that matter, so are my pink tower and brown stair. I'm wondering how to revive them as we age up.
Yes. Yes. And with a child in the borderline between primary and lower elementary, I think some would say like, in a Montessori classroom, we would say that those materials can be used to go on and teach some lower elementary lessons, but also, as David said at the very beginning, some materials just have a short lifespan. You know, they were designed for, like the pink tower was, it is an algebraic representation of
Sure.
cubing, but it was designed for a young child. That was what Maria Montessori had originally designed it for. So since your child has really outgrown the stacking part of it, it means that you can get more creative with it. If your child wants to combine these materials and
Because the
play
brown
with the
stair
design,
and the pink tower go together.
as you start learning more about geometry, it might be worth hanging on to for a little longer, because as you really explore the concept of cubing, you're probably going to find it useful to bring back out again and make those comparisons for your child.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add on that is to don't feel it wasn't a mistake. Like it just is how it is. Like some materials are really powerful, but not for very long.
Yeah,
and I think there was a good example.
And also, think about in a Montessori classroom, one of the reasons that you have every single Montessori material there is because you've got, like, let's say between 15 and 30, 40 kids engaging in this environment every single year. Something needs to call to every single child. You know,
right.
and so if you populate your classroom with lots of each of these 5 subject area materials, like you've got all the materials around them, there's going to be a child in there for whom the pink tower just calls incredibly, and they want to go and do it every single day. And there's also going to be the child that has the lesson, and they're like, and then they move on to something else, and something else captivates their attention. And you never, the point that the frustrating, I know it's frustrating, like the frustrating and amazing part of this that you don't really get to see as a homeschooler, but you do get to see as a classroom teacher, is when you're a classroom teacher, you're very highly aware that not every material is going to call to every child, and you don't expect it.
That's right.
You know, so your job as a Montessori guide is to present lessons, you know, so you're like, hey, this child seems like they'd be ready for this concept. Let's see, here's the lesson. And then you observe and you're like, did they choose it? Did they not choose it? Interesting. But it's not about your ego. You know, when you're a homeschooling parent and you spend a lot of money on these Montessori materials, you're like, why isn't my kid engaging with it? They, you know, like,
what's wrong with me? What's wrong with them?
Did I not give a good lesson?
Yeah.
And maybe just that, maybe it was like the material plus the timing plus whatever is going on with your child's inner guide just didn't match. And it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the material, and it has nothing to do with your child either. It's just like learning is magical and spontaneous and completely unpredictable.
That's right.
And so as a guide, if you are looking at a particular child, you're observing, you're noticing, what you're looking for is not, does this child go and repeat every single material, every lesson that I've given them? You're looking for, does this child have some kind of spark for learning? And what is that
Well, the
spark?
answer will be yes.
The answer is yes. And the question is, what is it?
What is it? Yeah. That's right.
And then when you find out what it is, sometimes you don't need to take action. You just witness it.
That's right.
And that's the hard part.
It's another reason why we would stress like not overbuying, because you just don't know what is going to call to your child. You really have to observe your child, understand what you're looking for, and then match.
And then take your ego out of it.
Yeah, and then if you invest in it, we certainly have invested in stuff that just sat on the shelf with our own boys.
For sure.
It just happens. Maybe find a Montessori friend who would like to use that pink tower.
Yeah.
That would be a good choice too. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the things we've been talking about in terms of the method and knowing what kinds of things you might actually need and the whole scope and sequence, we actually have a program for you. It's called the Complete Curriculum. You can learn more about it at our website, childoftheredwoods.com. We're going to teach you how to introduce all of the different materials, the full sequence from ages 2 to 9. In our level curriculum, you get the cards, you get the monthly themes, you get the foundational lessons, you get a digital.
These are just samples.
These are just some samples.
There's too many to show you.
It's
right
all
now.
digital, so it's print on demand. You get to search, find what your child is interested in, and help follow. You get to be part of a community with great people like Pia. and others who are asking awesome questions and learning together. And if you'd like to know more, please head over to our website, childofredwoods.com, and send us an email, or you can chat with us, or you can just peruse our website and see what it's all about.
Yeah, we'll show you exactly what to introduce, when to introduce it, and why you should care about it. And you can always count on us to give you very realistic advice because we also are homeschooling parents who homeschooled our kids with the Montessori approach all the way through their teenage years.
That's right.
Well,
all right. Well,
lovely.
I love, one of my favorite materials are these.
The movable alphabet?
Yeah, it's such a really cool. Did I hear someone say movable alphabet?
Oh, you did, Mr. Bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about how language and literacy tools are one of the 5 Montessori types of materials everyone needs.
Oh, well, what do you do with them?
Oh, these?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, so these are some examples of the movable alphabet.
Ooh.
And they are just letters. Do you know your letters, Mr. Bunny?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do know my letters and the sounds they make, but I
You do?
don't know how to write.
Oh, well, if you know your letters and your sounds, in fact, you don't even need to know the names of the letters in order to write, Mr. Bunny.
Oh, really?
And so let's just do a little practice, just kind of make sure. Can you tell me the sound of this one? That's right. It's
Yeah.
And how about the sound of this one? Oops. I dropped that.
Kaput.
This one. Yeah, so I mean, if you know your sounds, then all you have to do is put them together and make a word. Would you like to try?
I would. I would like to make a word. There's a word I really like.
What is it?
Well, you're gonna think it's silly because it's the word I
Never.
always like to talk about.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
Yeah. It's carrot.
That's what I was thinking, Mr. Bunny.
I love carrots. I can't help it. I think about them in my sleep. I think about them when I'm waking.
Of course.
Carrots.
Carrots.
I wanna read the word carrot and spell it.
Oh, sure. Okay, so let's make the word carrot. So I have a whole bunch of movable alphabet tiles here.
Okay.
And let's just lay out a little workspace for us.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got this little mat from IKEA last time we were there. It was in their table setting area.
I remember.
Yeah. All right. So I have some movable alphabet tiles.
Yeah.
And just like if I were working with any child, I would probably not give all of them at once. Right? So I'm just going to give a few of them, and I'm just going to kind of lay them out at the top of our mat right here.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I'm just going to lay them there, just like in a nice little horizontal row.
Yeah.
All right, and why don't we just start? We're not going to start by looking at the letters, Mr. Bunny.
Oh, Mr. Bunny, hold on. I think
Oh, are we still there, friends?
we are.
Oh, it's wrong. Oh, you're going to flip us upside down. Okay, awesome. There you go.
Now that wasn't awkward at all.
No. All right, well, Mr. Bunny, now that I'm getting my head on me, I've got my head on. So we've got some tiles right here. I'm just going to set them out. And I want to start by this. I want you to say the word carrot.
Carrot.
And I want you to think about the sounds that you know and think about what sound comes first in the word carrot. What do you hear? You hear k. That's right.
Yeah.
So look at our mat. Do you see a letter that would go along with the sound k?
Yeah, it's this one.
You see this K.
Yeah.
All right, we'll put it right here. K. K does say k.
Yeah, yeah.
What comes next when you hear the word carrot? Carrot.
Carrot.
It's an
You hear an
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
you see an that you could put?
Yes, right there. Yeah.
Okay, here it is. I'm going to put it right next to the k. And now we'll kind of look at it together. Cur. What comes next, do you think, Mr. Bunny?
Yeah.
All right. Do you see a letter that says
It's that one. Yeah. Yeah. The Yeah, and then it's
Okay.
Carrot. Yeah.
You hear the t.
I do. I hear a t sound.
All right. And do you see a t?
I do. It's right here.
There it is. All right, here it is. Now comes the fun part, Mr. Bunny.
Ooh.
We get to read it together. And
Yes.
this is the way we do it. So I'm going to take my finger right here. And as we read, we're going to move our finger across the word. Are you ready?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Start here. Carrot.
Carrot. Wow.
It does. It says carrot.
Oh, boy.
You wrote it.
Oh, wow. That was pretty awesome. Not the very best, but the second best.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Do you know what the very best is?
What?
Eating a carrot.
Oh, I bet you want to go eat a carrot right now, Mr. Bunny.
I certainly do. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, Mr. Bunny. Well, friends, I hope you noticed that carrot is not spelled correctly. Did you notice that? Okay. Now, part of that is because I only just got out a few letters of that movable alphabet. I didn't get out the whole movable alphabet box. And if I were starting this lesson with a younger child who was just learning their letters, we'd probably start with like easy CVC words.
Yeah, we wouldn't start with the word carrot. But if the child wants to read carrot.
But Maria Montessori actually said you should start with whatever word your child wants to write first.
That's right.
And so our modeling here today was usually we would have the whole set of letters. If I were doing this with a child with predetermined words, cat, mat, sat, I would actually take those letters out of the box and put them at the top of the mat, just like we did here today. But what we ended up with was K-R-U-T, which does not spell carrot.
That's right, it does not. But I noticed you didn't tell Mr. Bunny that he was wrong.
Never.
Why is
no.
that?
In Montessori, we have a rule, and that rule is never correct the child. I know, and this is actually really hard for parents.
Yeah, because I mean, aren't you now teaching the child that carrot is spelled with a K-R-U-T?
That is how parents feel. They really do feel that way. They look at this, K-R-U-T, and they're like, I can't lie to. Am I lying to my kid? It makes you feel like you're lying. I promise you, it's not lying. These letters do say k-r-t. They read carrot. Spelling is something that we have decided culturally on, and it is different from oral language, right? So when we say the word carrot, we're hearing the sounds k-a-r-t, right? Or ut. But when we're writing it, we're using a conventional spelling system. And that's not what we're teaching children when they're learning to write. We're not teaching them spelling at all. And so this is spelled perfectly fine if we're just talking about phonetic spelling. And that's what we're teaching children in the beginning.
Yeah, in fact, one of our topics is writing before reading, because this is actually a process that you follow in order to get to literacy, is helping them sound out these letters.
Right.
And so you're right. Like, I can imagine as a parent, like, oh, I taught my child to spell carrot and it's K-rut. And now they're going to go around spelling K-rut. No, that's not how you spell carrot. It's K-rut.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
The second question is like, when? When do I get to teach them that it's a C and not a K? And the answer might be never. Eventually, if you do this right and you're exploring writing freely and you're having fun and you're not correcting their spelling at all, eventually your child is going to be a reader. And the truth is, the more of a reader they are, the better of a speller they are. And so they themselves will discover the C. they're probably going to discover it on the carrot bag itself, and
right.
and that will be their discovery and their Montessori
Boy, that
magic.
is amazingly powerful.
It is. It's so much more powerful than if you were to say, oh, actually, it's not a case.
That's the way it always is with learning. Like the key to exceptional teaching is to create situations where the learner comes to the aha moment. You guide them through it. That is actually what all the materials and the lessons and all the stuff that we've been talking about really are about. They're about creating an environment where the child can have that aha. And so this is a great example of that. They're gonna have spelled carrot, and they're gonna feel like, yeah, I can learn, I can read. Then they're gonna pick up a book, or they're gonna be in the grocery store, and they're gonna see a carrot in a bag, and they're gonna see that it's spelled C-A-R-R-O-T, and they're gonna be like, oh, that's how you spell carrot. What else is spelled like a C? And they might start to ask, and they might like care, careful, right? And the world just begins to open up, and it's an amazing thing. And you allow that to happen when you allow them to explore and learn, even if it's not the right way.
All right, beautiful. Thanks so much for joining us, friends. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today. Next time we pop on next week, we'll give you a little peek inside Ladybug.
That's right. We'll be back
come
next
join
week
us
for
for that.
sure. Yeah, well, this was actually our last episode in our materials lesson series.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed the 4 parts. We'll have a new series for us next time, including, and like I said, featuring Ladybug.
Yep.
Now, if you're curious about Ladybug or anything else, you can head over to our website, childoftheredwoods.com, and where you'll find all the information. We actually offer a free trial, 7 days, and that includes your ability to use our website, to go kind of peruse a bit, join the community, and best of all, you get the theme of the month, which in this case is Ladybug. And our members are having a lot of fun with Ladybug. So you can go experience it for yourself. And if you're like, oh, I love this, I want the rest of it, then you can join us at the complete or at the unlimited level, where you get special coaching and all kinds of other good stuff.
Yep.
So
all right.
Head over to our website and let us know.
That's right. And go download those essential Montessori materials.
That's right.
All right. Love you, friends.
Thanks,
See you next
everybody.
week.
Bye.